Another refill? Seriously? Just water this time? Carla hissed under her breath, snatching the empty mug. 3 hours he'd been parked in her best four-top booth, nursing one lukewarm coffee, now asking for water like he planned to set up camp. Didn't he see the lunchtime rush building? Who was this guy? Carla slammed a glass of water onto the table, sloshing some onto the worn formica. The man, black, maybe mid-50s, dressed in clothes that were clean but undeniably worn. Faded jeans, a simple gray sweatshirt slightly frayed at the cuffs, flinched almost imperceptibly at the impact but offered a quiet, "Thank you." He didn't protest the spill, didn't complain, didn't do much of anything except stare out the window or occasionally make small, precise marks in a little spiral notebook he kept cradled in his lap. Probably doodling, Carla thought dismissively, or maybe filling out job applications. He had that look, quiet, defeated almost, like countless others she saw drifting through downtown, clinging to the edges. She resented him taking up valuable real estate. Her section wasn't huge. Every occupied table during peak hours meant potential tips, money she desperately needed, to make rent on her tiny, overpriced apartment, to keep the lights on, maybe even fix the muffler on her sputtering old Honda. This guy, nursing tap water after one $5 coffee 3 hours ago, was costing her money, real money. She spun away before he could ask for anything else, plastering a fake bright smile on her face for the impatient businessman waving frantically from the counter. The diner buzzed with the usual controlled chaos. Orders shouted, plates clattering, the sizzle of burgers on the grill. Carla moved through it like a pinball, ricocheting between tables, juggling orders, refilling coffees, forcing pleasantries through gritted teeth. Her feet ached, her back twinged. She hadn't had a proper break, just choked down a cold half sandwich while hiding in the walk-in cooler for 5 minutes. And through it all, he sat there, an island of infuriating calm in her turbulent sea of stress. She made a point of noisily clearing tables nearby, pointedly checking her watch as she passed his booth. He seemed oblivious, lost in his notebook or the view outside. What was he even looking at? Just traffic, gray buildings, people hurrying by. Nothing special. She tried catching his eye, hoping a sharp glare might encourage him to move along. But his gaze, when it occasionally drifted from the window, seemed distant, thoughtful, not meeting hers directly. It wasn't deliberate avoidance, she realized with a flicker of annoyance. It was like she genuinely wasn't registering on his radar. Invisible again. Great. The businessman paid with a corporate card, leaving a stingy tip. Figures. The couple in booth 3 argued over who forgot to pay the electric bill, their voices rising before dissolving into sullen silence. Carla just kept moving, fetching ketchup, extra napkins, another side of fries. Every time her eyes swept her section, they snagged on the man in the corner booth. His stillness became a focal point for her mounting frustration. Why her section? Why her diner? Didn't he have anywhere else to be? A shelter? A library? Anywhere but here, costing her money, taking up space meant for paying customers. She imagined confronting him, telling him politely but firmly that the table was needed. But the words caught in her throat. There was something about his quiet dignity, despite the worn clothes, that held her back. Some flicker of intelligence in his deep-set eyes when he did briefly look up. It warred with her assumptions, creating an uncomfortable dissonance she didn't want to examine too closely. Easier to just label him a nuisance, a freeloader, and let the resentment simmer. Easier to be rude. Mr. Harrison, the diner owner, a gruff but fair man, noticed Carla's agitation. "Problem, Carla?" he asked, wiping down the counter. "That guy," she muttered, nodding towards the corner booth. "Been here since 9. One coffee." Harrison squinted. "Yeah, seen him before. Keeps to himself, though. Not bothering anyone, is he?" "He's bothering my wallet," Carla retorted, slamming down a stack of dirty plates. Harrison shrugged. "Slow day starting out. Give it time. Maybe he's waiting for someone." Carla doubted it. Who would be meeting him? She went back to the man's table, pot in hand, forcing cheerfulness. Another coffee? On the house this time? Maybe caffeine would jolt him into leaving. He looked up, offering a small, hesitant smile. It transformed his face momentarily, softening the weary lines. No, thank you. The water is fine. I appreciate the offer, though. His voice was quiet, smooth, with a surprising depth. No hint of the street roughness she expected. He went back to his notebook. Carla saw a glimpse of the page. Not doodles, not writing, but intricate lines and symbols that looked almost like musical notes? She scoffed internally. Right. Like this guy was Beethoven, probably just making patterns. She stalked away, more irritated than before. Why pretend? Why put on airs? Just admit you had nowhere else to go. The hours crawled by. The lunch rush peaked, then ebbed. New customers came and went. Booths turned over. Tips accumulated slowly, painfully. Carla felt drained, running on, fumes and frustration. And still, he sat there. Around 3 p.m. the man finally stirred. He carefully closed his notebook, tucked it into an inside pocket of his thin jacket, and pulled a few crumpled dollar bills from his jeans. He counted out exactly $5, smoothing the bills carefully on the table. Then he added 3/4 for the coffee. He hadn't forgotten. He pushed the money neatly to the edge of the table and stood up, stretching slightly. Relief washed over Carla. Finally, he was leaving. He caught her eye as she approached to clear the meager payment. "Thank you for your patience," he said, his gaze direct this time, holding hers for a brief, unsettling moment. There was no judgment in his eyes, only a quiet sort of understanding that pricked at her conscience. She mumbled something noncommittal, snatching the bills and coins, eager for him to be gone. He walked towards the diner's front door, moving with a deliberate, almost graceful stride that seemed at odds with his shabby appearance. Carla turned her back, starting to wipe down the table with aggressive swipes of her cleaning rag. Good riddance. Then she heard it. The low, throaty purr of an engine. Not just any engine. This was deep, powerful, expensive. She glanced towards the front window, annoyed, expecting some hotshot blocking the fire hydrant again. But the car pulling up directly in front of Rosie's diner wasn't just expensive. It was breathtaking. A gleaming black Rolls-Royce Phantom, long and sleek, radiating silent power. Its windows were tinted dark, reflecting the grimy streetscape like polished obsidian. People on the sidewalk stopped to stare. Even Mr. Harrison paused his counter-wiping, whistling softly under his breath. What was a car like that doing here? Before Carla could fully process it, the rear passenger door opened smoothly. A man emerged, tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal gray suit, sharp features, radiating an aura of crisp efficiency. He looked like he belonged on the cover of Forbes, not standing outside a greasy spoon diner. He scanned the sidewalk. Then his eyes found the quiet man just exiting the diner door. The impeccably dressed man broke into a warm, respectful smile. "Mr. Jones," he called out, his voice carrying clearly into the diner. "Ready to head to the studio? The orchestra is tuned and waiting." "Mr. Jones?" The quiet man nodded slightly, a faint smile touching his own lips. "Thank you, Arthur. Traffic wasn't too bad, I trust." "Studio? Orchestra?" Carla felt her jaw go slack. Her rag stilled in her hand. She stared, utterly bewildered. The man in the worn sweatshirt, the man she'd dismissed as a jobless drifter, was being addressed with deference by someone who looked like he owned half the city, and he was heading to a studio? With an orchestra? Arthur held the Rolls-Royce, door open. Mr. Jones paused just before getting in. He turned his head slightly, his gaze finding Carla through the diner window. He didn't smile this time, didn't frown, just held her gaze for a long moment, and in that look, Carla saw it all. The quiet observation, the patience that wasn't passivity, the knowledge of her judgment, her rudeness, her assumptions, and perhaps a touch of sadness. Then he inclined his head almost imperceptibly, a gesture that felt less like acknowledgement and more like dismissal. He slipped into the opulent interior of the Rolls-Royce. Arthur closed the door with a soft thud. The car pulled away from the curb as smoothly and silently as it had arrived, disappearing into the flow of downtown traffic, leaving Carla standing frozen in the middle of the diner, the dirty rag still clutched in her hand. "Mr. Jones." She fumbled for her phone, fingers shaking, clumsily typing the name into a search engine. Images flooded the screen. Photos of the man from her diner, though younger, sharper, often holding a conductor's baton or seated at a grand piano. Articles hailed him as Marcus Jones, the reclusive Pulitzer Prize-winning composer, a genius known for his complex, emotionally resonant symphonies. A man notoriously private, rarely seen in public, rumored to seek inspiration in ordinary places, observing everyday life. He wasn't homeless, he wasn't jobless, he was a legend, hiding in plain sight. And she had treated him like dirt, slammed his water down, resented his presence, judged him solely on his simple clothes, his quiet demeanor, the color of his skin. The weight of her own prejudice crashed down on her, heavy and suffocating. The hidden truth wasn't just his identity. It was the stark, ugly reflection of her own biases, revealed in the taillights of a disappearing Rolls-Royce. The quiet man wasn't the one lacking. She was. How easily do we build stories about strangers based on fleeting impressions? And what masterpieces might we miss when we only see the surface? Drop your theory in the comments and subscribe for more stories where appearances hide extraordinary truths.